Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. This is Dr. Shahabuddin. Today we will try exploring how we can write scientific research article and publish in journals effectively. So let's start. This is the content of this talk. We will start with some introductory information like what is the importance of publications, different types of scientific articles, structure of scientific articles, like the most popular one is IMRaD. We will step by step learn the effective way of writing title, abstract, introductions, methodology, discussion and critical analysis, and finally conclusions. And then followed by that, starting from 10, as you can see, we will learn some associated aspect of scientific articles writing, which is like referencing and citation management, journal selection strategy, submission process and cover letter. We will talk about peer review and responding to reviewers, and some common mistakes, and finally some tips for successful publications. Let's start with the introductory aspect of this scientific publications. So why do I need to, or why do we need to publish? So here I have mentioned that knowledge decimation, okay, which means whatever research we do, if we cannot publish it, that means that is going to be within your mind, or that belongs to you only. So if other people cannot get benefit out of it, or you cannot transfer your knowledge to other people, so the research is meaningless. Therefore there is a common phrase which says that either publish or perish. So if you cannot publish, or if you do not publish, that means you are perishing your work. So therefore the knowledge decimation is one of the purpose of publications. So secondly, career advancement, like for promotion, funding, recognition, you need to have your publications, right? So it strengthens the promotions and tenure prospect. It increases the opportunity for research funding, enhances the reputation and professional recognitions, degree requirement of course. As you know, nowadays there are different rankings, especially for universities and as well as for the researchers individual ranking, like 2% scientists in the world, 0.1% scientists in the world, and so on. So that is also based on one of the criteria for this is publications. So therefore you need to have your publications, you need to have your citations, you need to have your Hayes index, as I have mentioned in the bottom left part or bottom left corner of these slides, that once you publish, it gets cited by other researchers, so you get citations. So that is important for university as well as for your own career. So when there is a ranking, of course they see your citations, they see your Hayes index. So, and final things, last but not least, is contribution to society, which is from my perspective, this is the most important one, because whatever we do research, that's actually for the purpose of the benefit of the society. So, and if we can provide the evidence-based solutions to the real-world problems, that is the contribution to your society. That drives innovations and technological development, support policy making, and improves quality of the life. So that is the ultimate goal. Hence, publication is important. Okay. Alright, so what are the type of scientific articles? So there are many types of scientific articles. If you go to submission options of journal website or submission portal, you will see there are many criteria like As I have mentioned here, 6 criteria, but this is not limited to 6 only, but there are many. In fact, there are many. So one is research article, where you can publish your original research with new data, methods, results, conclusion, and so on. So this is the structure, but this is essentially the new data. Secondly, review articles, which is also important, like you summarize the critical part or analyze critically the existing literature to provide a comprehensive overview of the research, the field of research you are doing. So that should also include the methods. Sometimes you can include the method of the review, but originally it can follow the IMRaD method as well, but here we don't have the research results, so but it's critical analysis anyway. So that what we will discuss later on while discussing about the structure of the paper. So then short communications presents brief but important findings that are significant and time sensitive. You can publish case study, you can publish technical note, a review of the book or chapter. So these are the few categories, but mostly in today's talk we will concentrate on research articles. So while submitting the articles, you need to choose the journals wisely so that your research is relevant or within the scope of the journals. And there are many criteria to select the journals, but I have given an example here: high quality impact or high impact journal versus low impact journals. So high impact journal usually have high impact factor. The number I have mentioned here is greater than equals to 5. This is just an example, but don't take it as a rule of thumbs. So 5 doesn't mean anything. This is just an example. So it depends on the field as well. So it should have high impact compared to other journals in that particular field. Okay. Low impact factor, which is as I have mentioned again, so this less than 2 doesn't mean anything. This is just an example. Low impact factor should have less compared to the other journals, which I will talk in a minute. The second one is the top quartile ranking. So for example, I have given an example of Q1. So there are usually 4 categories of ranking: Q1, Q2, Q3, and Q4. Top 20% is Q1, and followed by like 50% is Q2, and 75% is Q3, and so on. So the ranked Q1 lies in within the top 25% of the subject area. Okay. So this is considered to be the prestigious one and most tier 1 or tier 1 type journals. And of course you can understand that lower quality compared to Q1, Q2 is the lower, Q3, and so on and so forth. Okay. So the journals which does not have this quality like Q1, Q2, Q3, that is beyond or apart from ISI type. So we will probably later on discuss in some point in time discuss about the quality of the journals in detail, but let's move forward about like the quartile, like which is 1 to 4. And then in terms of the acceptance, it varies depending on the quality of the journals. So as I have mentioned, 5 to 20% acceptance is considered to be the high impact. That doesn't really mean that this is only the criteria. Usually what we can see from journal statistics that high quality journal has low acceptance rate, like less than 20% sometimes, but this is not a rule of thumb again. So high impact, high acceptance rate, like some journals have high acceptance rate like 40%, above 40, 50, 70, in some articles have 80% acceptance as well, especially the paid journals which are not considered to be the high quality journals. High impact journal has very good reputations, broad and global audience, and low impact, as you can understand, so limited or niche audience. So the key takeaway here is high impact journal offers greater visibility, credibility, greater career benefits. Like instead of publishing hundreds of papers in low quality journals or journals with low impact factor, while you have the higher impact factor in that categories, so better to publish like few articles in high impact factor journals or high quality journals. This is from my own understanding or perceptions. So what is the general paper structure? I have touched a bit before, but this is a generally accepted structure of the journal articles, like starting from titles, abstracts, keywords, main text, and references. So while talking about the titles, it must have a clear, concise, and specific titles that reflects the main focus of your research or the study you are doing. So the purpose is to attract reader attention and accurately present the content of the paper. Second one is the abstract, which is the synopsis of your study. It must have a few important things in it, including background of your study or objective of the study, followed by methods, results, and conclusions, or sometimes it can be implications. Third one is keywords. Your journal articles must have few keywords. Generally it's 3 to 6 depending on the journal, and you have to read the guidelines of the journal articles. Fourth one is the main text, which include introductions, methods, results, and discussions. So this is the main part of your research. And finally, you need to have the references, like you have to have supporting articles, or while doing the literature reviews in the introductions, you need to support your claims, or you need to explain, critically analyze what research has been done, what are the research gaps, novelty of your research, and these are the things you need to have. So therefore you need to do the referencing, or you need to have the bibliography where you can mention, so these are the articles you have cited or you have read, and in the information you are putting here is in line with the research which have been done before. So we will talk about the referencing style later on, yeah, so this is what you need to have at the end of your research article. Now let's talk about the most commonly used the structure, which is called IMRaD. I stands for introductions, as you can see, M for method, R for results, and D for discussions, results and analysis, RA. So introductions, you need to have, in introductions you need to have the backgrounds. It should include the research problems and of course objective and hypothesis. So and that will constitute your research gap. So you need to have your novelty in it. At the end of the introductions, you need to put your novelty of the research gaps, and so on, and objective of this, of course, before finishing your, or before concluding your introductions. Secondly, the methods, which is very important. You have to describe the procedures, materials, and the technique used to conduct the research, so other people can replicate it or verify your research. So that should include the designing of your study, participants or subject. For example, if it is kind of like different kinds of social science based research or questionnaire based research and so on, it depends on, depending on the area you are doing the research. Like my case is the engineering field. You need to have your experimental setup, materials, and chemicals and so on. You need to explain each and everything in your experiment. Or if you are doing modeling, then you need to explain what are the process, what are the methods you are using, what are the equations you are using. So we'll talk about it later on in method sections. So procedures of the analysis also is part of the method. And the third one is the results and analysis. So yeah, you have to present your findings. You have to clearly lay out what are the results you have obtained, and your research is scientifically proven. You have to prove that your research scientifically with fundamental understanding or experimental data and so on, and you have to support your claims with respect to the current understanding and future, and you can propose something in future, but that has to be scientifically evidence based, scientifically proven, or at least you have to put some hypothesis based on the scientific fundamentals. You have to discuss your results, interpret the results, you have to compare the results with the existing literature or fundamental understanding, and you have to give the implications. You have to lay out the implications or the limitations of your study. So that provides the flow of your research. You have to write the introduction step by step, method, describe the methods in process, in step by steps. You have to lay out your results and findings, discuss it, explain it, and finally possible implications of your research. So this is the IMRaD methods. Now let's talk about this IMRaD method in detail. So before moving to introduction part, so let us talk about how we can write a strong title. So a title is very important because that is the beginning, or that is the first impression of the readers. So if the title is not attractive, then reader will not accept it, or reader will not read it. Therefore it has to be clear, concise. My suggestion is to keep it as short as possible and easy to understand. Keep it simple. There is no word limit, but preferably from my understanding or my perception, try keeping it within 15-20 words. Secondly, you include the keywords within the titles, because people will search based on the title, based on the keywords of their research. So if the keywords is not present in your title, then they won't be able to find your articles. So the idea of publications is to convey the message what you have got, or what the results you have. That message you are conveying to other people so that they can get benefit out of it. So this is important. Third tips is avoid jargons. Try not to use too many technical words in title. Okay, so an example of the comparison, a strong title is specific. It must be informative and easy to grasp. So on the other hand, a weak title is vague and too broad. So this is what I understand. So I have given an example here, a study on students. If you write like that, so that's not specific, that's not clear, that is vague. Therefore you have to mention study on undergraduate students, or master's student, or school students, something like that. So it has to be clear and concise and specific. So now abstract. So abstract is one of the most important one in your research article. So it contains each and everything of your article. This is the synopsis or the summary of your research. It has to have background information, it must have objectives, it should include methods, there should be some primary findings or key results, and finally conclusions or implications or scientific applications of your research. So my tips is like keep it short but follow the journal's guidelines. Depending on the journal guidelines, it can vary, like the word number, like it can be 150 to 250, it can be that there can be more even, you know. Sometimes some articles, some journals prefer less. So better not to mention the citations, then better not to put the citations here, but unless really important. So try putting the quantitative results here. Try including as much as possible the keywords in the abstract, so that people can get the overall idea of just reading the abstract. So it has to be standalone. Abstract should reflect the results of your objectives or your findings, background, each and everything. Okay, so now let's talk about the introductions, which is the first letter of your IMRaD method. Okay, so the purpose of the introduction is to, firstly, the context. You have to put the context in the introductions, like starting from the broader perspective of your research, then key concept and significance of the research. This is the context of your introductions. Then you need to lay out the problems. What is the problem? That is called problem statement. Who is affected? Why does it need to be solved? So these are the problems of your research. If there is no problems, there is no point of doing the research, right? So therefore you have to figure out what are the problems, existing problems, and what you are going to solve. And that's the question of the research gap. Okay, so you have to write down the limitations of the research, current limitations or drawbacks, or problems, real world problems, inconsistencies, and therefore you have to justify for further research. You cannot repeat the exactly same thing what is available in the literatures. So therefore you need to figure out what are the research gap in the existing literature or current understanding, and then you have to propose something which can potentially solve the problems. And finally you lay out your objectives clearly. You write down, this is my objective of this current research, and expected contributions or expected outcomes. Okay, so introductions is one of the important one, because people will also read your introduction before going to, sometimes before going to even reading your whole articles. So therefore there are different methods. The one I have mentioned in the left hand side is a funnel approach. So you start with the broader perspective of your research or the area you are dealing with, and then go downwards with narrow specific task or a specific objective of your research, and then citing the recent literatures. So use recent resources, recently published literature, like 5 to 7 years, and then you need to ensure the article you are citing is relevant one. So nowadays people are using different AI tools where they can artificially generating the references, which is very unethical, I should say, very much unethical, because that is not relevant. Sometimes you cannot even get that references at all. Therefore you need to make sure the references you are citing must have the relevancy of your research. Integrate neutrality or naturality of your research or introductions, which means the cite to support statement, not randomly citing as it has to be. Therefore you have to have the reason for citing the research articles. Finally, you need to highlight the novelty of your research. As I mentioned in the previous slide, that you need to have your research gap, and then you need to write down the novelty of your current research. So you have to state your contributions and aim of your research. You need to be specific that this is what you are going to do, this is the method I am going to propose, this is the context of my work, and so on. So you have to be clear and specific in terms of the novelty declarations. So this is the common mistakes. Right, writing the introductions too long, that is unnecessary. So you have to be you have to have some limits. So don't make it too long, don't make it too short. Okay, so don't need to put so much information, don't need to put too many citations. Okay, so that will overload readers and hide the key messages. Therefore, be concise, focus on the topic. Okay, and of course you need to remove or avoid any repetitions. So there is another mistakes of which people usually do is without mentioning the gaps of the research. You have to clearly mention the gaps. Okay, so how to avoid these mistakes? You need to clearly compare the previous studies, what people have done, and figure out the gaps, what is not done, or what is the existing issues, challenges which you are going to solve. And then final one is the weak motivations, not clearly explaining why the study is important or worth doing. Okay, so a reader may not understand the significance or the relevance of the study. Therefore, you need to explain the importance of the real world impact of the research and show how it contributes to the field or solve practical problems. Okay, in methodology, you need to make sure the research you are doing can be reproduced, meaning that other people or other researchers can replicate your research exactly as it is. Therefore, you need to provide sufficient information in detail so that people can replicate your work. You need to use the consistent procedures and standard methods. You need to share the data, code if possible, or files if it is available or there is no restrictions on it. So you need to have transparency in your research. You need to build the trust by clearly describing how the research was conducted. Okay, you need to report the assumptions, limitations clearly and transparently, honestly. So you need to present all relevant parameters and decision criteria. You need to avoid hidden steps or vague descriptions that may bias the results. Therefore, your essential element that describe the methodology in detail include the materials, which, for example, chemicals, raw materials, equipments, and other specifications of your materials. You need to explain the experimental setup clearly and with detailed information as much as possible. And then if you are using kind of models or software, then you need to explain what are the methods, what are the equations you are using, what are the software, including the versions, etc. Equations, of course, you need to in detail or explain the equations, or at least sufficient information so that people can understand without going back to the original fundamental books or literatures. So in IMRaD RA results and discussions, here you need to present your results in the form of tables, graphs, figures. Okay, in this tables, graphs and figures must have clear captions, and it must be standalone. Okay, it should have sufficient information so that a reader can understand what the table, graphs and figures are about. So third one is avoid the duplications of your results. Do not repeat the same data in the tables and graphs. This is one of the common mistakes usually the beginners do. So therefore you need to make sure what is the best way to represent your results, either in the graphical form or in the tabulated form. So usually my perception is, if we have too much data, too many informations, then better to put in the tables. If it is possible to present in the graphs, then do it, but don't make it too clumsy. Make sure that it's clear and easy to read. So in terms of the data visualizations, it depends on the the researchers what type of chart you are going to use, but it depends on the data as well. So it can be line graphs, it can be bar, scatter, and so on. You need to make sure you put all the units and labels of in the graphs, and the data should be precise and self-explanatory. Avoid clutter, so keep the design simple, remove unnecessary elements, and focus on the key messages of the data. So the last one is the discussion with critical analysis. So you have to explain the results clearly, interpret and describe what the result shows. You need to compare with literature and justify the findings. You need to critically analyze why the result differs, if it is, and give the supporting information or supporting literature. So this is why your results is different from others. You need to put the limitations, acknowledge the constraints of the research that may affect the results or the interpretations. You need to put the, of course, scientific reasonings. Simply better not to put your own idea always, but with scientific reasoning and with supporting literatures. And the final one of the research article is the conclusions. So in the conclusions you need to put your key findings, summarize the main outcomes. Okay, so do not put any new data here. Whatever data you have got are explained in the results and discussion sections, in the result sections. So this is the data you can put here, the key information or the key data. Do not put any new information here. Then you need to lay out or explain the practical implications of your research. You need to highlight the novelty, scientific significance, and possibly industrial relevance of your study. So now that's all about how we can structure our paper for scientific publications, journal publications. But this is very important, associated or some knowledge you need to have before start even writing. So referencing and citations is equally important. So there are different styles depending on the journals. Please read through the guidelines of the journals, what the style they want or they prefer, like APA style, Harvard style, Vancouver style, and so on. And then you have to use different softwares, nowadays there are many softwares available. Previously people used to use Microsoft Word itself, but that is very complex. If we have especially many references, like more than 60-50 references, that is very difficult to handle manually. Therefore I strongly suggest you to learn any of this referencing management software like EndNote, Mendeley, or Zotero. I usually use EndNote. So but it's up to you which one you want to use. So the common referencing errors is missing citations. Okay, for example, in the text you have the number, but that number is not essentially there in the bibliography. So incorrect formatting, the journal article is asking for some specific or one specific style, but you are putting in different one. And then outdated references like 50 years old. I'm not saying that is not important, but if you compare with the recent literatures, that has to have some sort of ratios. Like you cannot use always the recent literatures. Yes, you can, but there should have some old as well if they are important. So people usually prefer the recent literature, or of course this is important, but if there are any literature or the articles which are important in the field, even though that are backdated or even 50 years old, you can cite them. So another issue is plagiarisms. This is very important because nowadays there are many unethical practices in our academia. Therefore, you need to understand what is the plagiarism. In definition, plagiarism is the act of using someone else's words, idea, data or work and presenting them as your own without proper acknowledgement or citations. Okay. So the key point is plagiarism includes copying text verbatim as well as the paraphrasing ideas without giving the credit. Even though you do the paraphrasing, nowadays people use different paraphrasing software like Quillbot and so on, or ChatGPT, but essentially that is copied from someone else. Even though you are paraphrasing, but the idea is from them. Therefore, you have to do the, you have to give the credit to them, and therefore you have to cite. So there is nothing wrong with giving the credit to other people. So why don't you do that? Okay. So to be in the safe side, better, even though if you are confused whether you should cite or not, better I prefer citing the references. Okay, so an example is given here, like people are like citing or quoting some information or writing some information which is exclusively or straight away copied from other people's work and without giving them the credit. That is called plagiarisms, and the consequence is severe. This is what I have mentioned some of them here. And the retract of publications, like even though you have published your work, when later on that has come to their attentions, the editors or journal authorities, your publications can be retracted or made void or invalid. So therefore that is very embracing, very much embracing. Therefore that will can lead to demotions of your career. You can lose the credit, bad reputations, even termination from the jobs, disciplinary actions and so on. And if you are students writing for thesis or even journal articles, your degree can be cancelled. So therefore you need to be very careful while writing articles or thesis. So you have to give proper citations, and that can avoid the plagiarisms. So how to avoid? Cite all sources, always acknowledge the original author, paraphrase correctly. Even though you paraphrase it, you read from your own, and even though you paraphrase it, you better to cite, or you have to cite it, of course, if the idea is from someone else's words, unless it is very much fundamental, okay, which is commonly known. For example, the second law of thermodynamics or so on. So use the quotation mark if you cannot avoid the quotations or the some statements. If you cannot avoid, then better to use the quotation marks so that people can understand this is exactly taken from someone else's work, and then do the referencing. Then you have to keep the records of this, and finally before submitting, this is important that you do the checking, plagiarism checking, using different detection tools like Turnitin's, Authenticate or Grammarly. So you can check it that what the percentage of the similarities of your works with the existing literatures. So usually people prefer, the journal prefer less than 15% or something, even less, but that is not the rule of thumb. The essential thing is, even though if you copy straight away only 2 sentences from someone else and the rest of the works is yours, that article can be retracted, because that 2 sentences essentially taken from someone else, and that can lead to the retract of your publications or plagiarisms. So the final one I want to talk about is that use of artificial intelligence. This is the current challenges. So the first of all, you have to have your ethical principles. You have to be fair and unbiased. You protect the privacy, stay transparent, and keep human in control. Even though you use all sort of AI tools, at the end of the day you have to use your brain to modify or cross-check it, because AI can give you wrong information entirely. So you have to use your human intelligence to check it out. While using the AI, you have to use it wisely. Okay, you have to define your clear goals, provide clear specific input, verify and fact check of the results or outcome from the AI. As I said, you have to use your human brain to cross check it or judge whether the results you are getting out of the AI is correct. Okay, human brain cannot be replaced with the AI. That's the important issue or important things. Then you can cross check it. You can improve your prompt and then get better results. That's all acceptable, but at the end of the day you have to be free, you have to be fair and use your own brain. So that can essentially improve our productivity. So why not using it, but use it wisely and effectively with transparency. Okay, so journal selections and submission. So this is once you have done your research, you have written down all the results and things like that, and then you are about to submit. The first thing you need to do is you need to read the scope of the journals, whether the journal you are going to submit accept this kind of articles. You can choose the impact factor, whether that meet your criteria. For example, some universities does not allow their authors or their scientists to submit the articles below specific impact factor or quartile. You have to check it. Review, check the review time, how long it takes. Let's say one of the articles, one of the journal paper or journal takes like 3-4 months usually on average. They have mentioned in their website, but you need to publish it quickly, so better not to submit there. Okay, so check whether you can put publish in the open access or subscriptions, whether you have money to publish in the open access journal. Other important aspect is nowadays there are many unethical practice in academia, and one of them is predatory journals. So there are hundreds of predatory journals in the world. So they are showing the impact factor that is fake. So they are giving the advertisement that is fast acceptance, but they are not doing the peer review. So if these are the cases, of course you have to avoid it. If you publish, there is no point of doing the research in these predatory journals. So you have to be very careful. Before submitting, you have to check it. So there are ways, like you can go to the Web of Science, and there you can check the list of the authentic journals, and you have to verify with your peers that the journal is real. So once you have submitted, there will be peer review, and the reviewer will give the comments, at least 2 reviewers usually. So the purpose of the review is ensure the quality or validity of your work. It improves the clarity or rigor, strengthens scientific contributions. Okay, so how to respond the reviewer comments? You have to be polite, maintain respect to the professionals, because they are doing their job free of cost, so they are not paid, so they are doing fully voluntarily. Therefore you have to be respectful to the reviewers. You have to address all the comments. Possibly if any comments you cannot address, write politely to the authors, these are the reviewers, that these are the limitations, because of what, because of which you are not capable of addressing these comments. You have to give the responses point by point and list down the changes you have made. In some journals you need to provide the clear version and the track changed version, so you have to make sure the changes you are making is highlighted or track changed. Finally, this is the tips. Write regularly. Do not always use AI, because nowadays we are becoming lazy. Me too. Therefore we have to write from our brain regularly, consistently. Okay, even though you are expert in the field, you have published hundreds of articles, but still try writing it regularly, or at least reviewing it from your students' work. Read both old and recent work. Avoid repeating mistakes. Read top journals. Collaborate with other, and never give up after even rejections, because rejection is part of the journey. So keep improving and preserve until you succeed. Thank you. Feel free to ask if you have any questions. My email address is here. I'm more than happy to help. Thanks very much. See you next time with some other video.